The chandeliers above the ballroom glittered like frozen constellations. Music floated through the air, elegant and distant, the sound of violins dancing over soft laughter and the faint clink of champagne glasses. The world inside the Waldorf Astoria was golden, perfect, suspended, as if time itself had dressed in silk for the night. For Serafina Collins, tonight wasn't just another celebration. It was the night she crossed a finish line that had once felt unreachable. 21 years old, the youngest in her class to graduate from Columbia Law. Every handshake, every congratulatory smile carried the weight of years spent studying under dim lamps and whispering promises to her late mother that she would make something of herself. But now that the moment had arrived, something inside her felt strangely hollow, like she was waiting for something that hadn't yet begun. She stood near the marble staircase, her navy silk dress catching the light with every small movement. Her father hovered proudly nearby, shaking hands with old colleagues, police officers, lawyers, men who had once run toward danger and now toasted survival. Ray Collins, retired detective, silver hair combed neatly back, suit pressed sharp. He had raised her alone, with quiet sacrifices and unspoken love. "You did it, kid," he said, his voice roughened by years of grit and whiskey. "Your mom would have been proud." Sarah smiled softly. "You always say that. Because it's always true." He touched her shoulder. "She'd tell you not to waste that brain of yours on fancy titles. She'd say, use it to fix the world." Sarah laughed gently. "The world doesn't want fixing, Dad." "Then change the parts that do." She wanted to believe him. But even as his words settled around her, the air in the room shifted, subtly, like the first breath before a storm. The orchestra slowed, the crowd's murmur softened, and for no reason she could explain, Sarah turned toward the entrance. That's when she saw him. He entered like the music itself had bent to his rhythm. Dante Marino, tall, composed, wearing a black tailored suit that fit like armor. His presence cut through the glittering crowd with quiet authority. He didn't demand attention. He commanded it by existing. Silver threaded through his dark hair, catching the chandelier's glow. His eyes, gray and unreadable, swept the room once before, locking onto her. It had been 5 years since she'd seen him, her father's oldest friend, the man who had visited rarely but always left a shadow behind. He had been the quiet hero in her father's stories, the one who owed nothing but gave everything. When she was 16, Dante had attended her mother's funeral, standing apart from the mourners in a black coat, silent, respectful. Back then, he'd seemed untouchable. Tonight he looked human, and far more dangerous for it. Her heartbeat faltered. "Ray Collins," Dante greeted when their eyes met. His voice was low, smooth, carrying a weight that silenced everything else. "It's been too long." Ray's face lit up. "Dante, you made it." He clasped the man's hand, laughter echoing. "You disappear for years, then show up looking like you own Manhattan." "Old habits," Dante said, smiling faintly. "I hear congratulations are in order." Ray turned proudly toward his daughter. "This is her night." Dante's gaze followed, and the smile faded. For the briefest moment, something unreadable passed across his features. A flicker of recognition, of realization. He extended a hand. "Serafina Collins. Last time I saw you, you were still sneaking into your dad's patrol car for fun." Her fingers met his, warmth against warmth. "And last time I saw you, you told me not to grow up too fast. Seems you didn't listen." She smiled, but her pulse trembled. "Some lessons take longer." Ray, oblivious to the current between them, chuckled. "You two catch up. I'll go grab us a drink." As he drifted away, Sarah released Dante's hand too slowly. The silence that followed felt heavier than the chandeliers above them. Her breath hitched before she could stop it. He noticed. "You've changed," he said quietly. "So have you." He tilted his head slightly. "Do I look that different?" "You look—" Her voice trailed off, caught between honesty and restraint. "Older. Colder. Like someone who learned to stop apologizing." He didn't deny it. "Apologies don't fix what's already burned." Their eyes held for a heartbeat longer than was proper. Then a waiter brushed past, jostling her slightly. Something fluttered to the floor at her feet. A small, cream-colored envelope. Her name written in looping ink. Serafina Collins. She frowned, glancing around, but no one seemed to be watching. Dante noticed her hesitation. Everything all right? Probably just a card. She tucked it into her clutch. Someone must have dropped it. But the paper felt too heavy, too deliberate. Before she could open it, her father returned, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. A toast to my daughter and the woman she's becoming. They clinked glasses. Dante's lingered an instant longer against hers. To the rules we break for the right reasons, he said softly. Sarah blinked. What does that mean? He didn't answer. The night spun on. Speeches, laughter, the steady hum of music. But every time Sarah turned, Dante was there. Not too close, never obvious, yet always within reach. She caught him watching once, just once across the crowd, and felt something inside her shift, slow and irrevocable. By midnight, the ballroom began to thin. Ray stepped out to greet an old friend, leaving her momentarily alone. Sarah slipped toward the terrace, desperate for air. The city stretched below in a shimmer of glass and noise. Cool wind brushed her face, tangled through her hair. She reached into her clutch, pulling out the envelope. Inside, a single sheet. One sentence written in careful, deliberate hand. If you love him, you'll destroy him. Her breath caught. The paper trembled in her hands. She looked over her shoulder. No one there. Only the echo of the orchestra fading through the open doors. A chill ran down her spine. You shouldn't be alone out here. A voice said softly behind her. She turned. Dante stood in the doorway, framed by warm light, the city's reflection glinting in his eyes. Old habit, she murmured. I think better when it's quiet. The quiet lies, he replied, stepping closer. It tells you you're safe when you're not. Something unspoken hovered between them. A question neither dared voice. Do you believe in fate, Mr. Marino? She asked finally. I believe in debts, he said. And how they're paid. She swallowed. What if some debts shouldn't be? His gaze darkened. Then they'll find another way. For a heartbeat they stood in silence. The kind that said too much. The kind that rewrote rules. Then her father's voice cut through from inside. Sarah, ready to go? She blinked, hiding the letter behind her back. Coming, Dad. When she turned again, Dante was gone. Only the echo of his voice lingered in the night. She slipped the note into her purse, heart unsteady, breath uneven. Somewhere deep inside, she knew the truth she couldn't yet name. Tonight wasn't just an ending. It was the moment her heart broke its first rule, and fate began to count the cost. Morning light spilled through the kitchen window, painting golden streaks across the worn oak table. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after big nights and long thoughts. Sarah's gown from the gala still hung over a chair, silk catching soft glimmers of sunlight. The letter, that letter, lay folded beside a half-drunk cup of coffee, the inked warning echoing in her mind like a prayer she didn't understand. If you love him, you'll destroy him. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante's face, the gray of his eyes, the weight of his voice, the silence between them that had felt like a promise and a curse all at once. A soft creak from the hallway broke her thoughts. Her father, Ray, entered the room in his robe, hair mussed, eyes still heavy with sleep. He stopped when he saw her. Morning, kid. You're up early. Didn't sleep, she admitted. Ray poured himself coffee, leaned against the counter. Big night. You've earned a day to rest. Maybe let the world spin without you for once. She smiled faintly. I don't think the world would notice. Maybe not, but I would. He sat opposite her, squinting at the envelope on the table. What's that? Just something from last night. She slid it into her book before he could ask more. A note. From someone I should know? He asked with that fatherly tone that wasn't a question at all. No one important. She lied quickly. Dad, but the sound of a car pulling into their driveway cut her off. Ray frowned. You expecting someone? She shook her head. No. The low hum of an engine. Then the distinct click of a car door. Ray set down his cup, all traces of drowsiness gone. Stay here. He opened the front door. Sarah followed anyway, standing just behind him, and froze. Dante Marino. He stood at the foot of the porch, sunlight catching the edges of his black coat, his expression unreadable, the last place she expected to see him. Her home, her father's sanctuary. Ray's voice hardened. You shouldn't be here. I wouldn't be if it wasn't important, Dante replied evenly. What could be so important you show up unannounced at my door? Ray's jaw tightened. You know what that looks like. I know exactly what it looks like, Dante said. His gaze flicked briefly toward Sarah, just a second, enough to make her heart lurch, before he turned back to Ray. It looks like I'm keeping a promise. Ray's eyes narrowed. What promise? The one I made 15 years ago. Sarah looked between them. What are you talking about? Ray's voice softened, low and dangerous. Not now. She has a right to know, Dante said. Ray stepped closer, shoulders squared. Not from you. The silence stretched tight between them. Two men bound by something heavier than words. Sarah felt it, the tension of old debts, the ghosts of shared sins. She folded her arms. Someone tell me what's going on. Ray exhaled slowly. Your mother, he said finally. Years ago, before you were born, I got in deep. A case gone wrong, people I shouldn't have crossed. Dante pulled me out before I drowned. I owed him everything, still do. That's not the full story, Dante murmured. Ray shot him a warning glare. She doesn't need your version. Sarah's heart beat faster. What version? Your father's right, Dante said finally. It's not time. Just be careful, Serafina. Some ghosts have long arms. Her voice trembled. Is this about last night? About the letter? Ray froze. What letter? She regretted it the moment it slipped out. Nothing. It's nothing. But Dante's eyes sharpened. What did it say? Her throat tightened. It doesn't matter. It matters if someone's watching you, he said quietly. If someone knows enough to write your name. Ray's hand closed around the doorframe. What are you saying? That she might be in danger. Ray's voice dropped an octave. From who? Dante hesitated. Vince Arcuri. The name hit the air like a curse. Ray stiffened. He's still alive? More than alive. Dante's gaze darkened. He's rebuilding. And he hasn't forgotten who put him in the ground the first time. Sarah frowned. Who is he? Ray didn't answer. Dante did. A man who used to work for me, until he tried to burn the house down with everyone inside. You mean, Sarah's voice cracked. The mafia? Ray's expression was stone. It's not like that anymore. No, Dante said, it's worse. The old rules kept men like Vince in check. Now he answers to no one. Sarah stepped back. And he knows me? He knows your father, Dante said softly. And that's enough. The room felt smaller, the sunlight colder. Sarah gripped the back of a chair, steadying herself. What do we do? We protect you, Ray said firmly, like we always have. Dante's voice lowered. That might not be enough. Ray turned on him. Don't start this. She needs to understand. She doesn't need your world bleeding into hers. Ray's voice cracked through the air, echoing off the walls. I spent 20 years keeping her out of it. Dante's expression hardened, and now it's at her doorstep. Ray's hands clenched. You should go. Dante didn't move. He looked at Sarah. Really looked. Like a man seeing a reflection he didn't expect. If anything feels off, a shadow where it shouldn't be, a car that passes twice, you call me. She hesitated. I don't have your number. He reached into his coat, pulled a small card, and placed it on the table beside her. You do now. Then quietly to Ray. You can hate me all you want, but I'm not letting her pay for our past. He turned and left, his footsteps fading down the porch, the sound of his car engine trailing into the distance. The silence he left behind was heavy. Ray sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. "I never wanted this for you." Sarah picked up the card, tracing the name embossed in gold. "Dante Marino." She whispered, "What happened between you two?" Ray stared at the window. A promise made in blood. That night, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The shadows outside her window seemed thicker, slower. When she finally drifted to sleep, a soft noise stirred her awake, the faint click of metal, the whisper of movement in the dark. Her breath caught. She reached for her phone. "Dad," she whispered. No answer. A floorboard creaked down the hall. Her heart pounded as she slipped from bed, silent, barefoot, inching toward the door. Then, a sharp gust of wind. The curtains fluttered. The window was open. On the sill, a single white carnation, and beneath it a small black ribbon, torn, frayed, and the faint scent of smoke. A warning. A memory. A mark. Her hands shook as she lifted it, a whisper of footsteps below. By the time Ray reached her door, gun drawn from the nightstand, the intruder was gone, vanished into the night like a ghost that knew her name. Ray called the precinct. She watched him pace, voice low, controlled. But when he hung up, his face said what his words didn't. "They'll never find him, will they?" She asked softly. "No," he admitted. "Not if it's who I think it is." Her pulse quickened. "Vince Arcuri." He nodded once. "He's not sending threats. He's sending reminders." "Of what?" "That nothing we bury stays dead." Sarah looked down at the flower, fingers tightening around the stem. Her world, clean, logical, safe, was unraveling thread by thread. And standing at the center of it all was a man whose presence made her heart race and her father's voice harden. Dante Marino. She didn't know if he was her shield or her downfall, only that he was coming back, and next time, it wouldn't be for a warning. The rain came without warning. Gray clouds rolled over Manhattan like smoke from an unseen fire, the kind that smelled of memory. Sarah pressed the elevator button inside Marino Holdings, watching her reflection in the polished doors. The navy suit she wore felt heavier than fabric. It was armor, or maybe a disguise. She wasn't sure yet. Her father had argued all morning. "You don't owe him anything." Maybe she didn't. But after the flower on her windowsill, the whisper in the dark, the scent of smoke, she couldn't ignore the truth. Someone had marked her, and Dante Marino was the only man who knew why. When the elevator doors slid open, a wave of quiet power hit her. Sleek marble floors, glass walls, the hum of ambition beneath muted tones. This wasn't just a law firm, it was a fortress disguised in Armani. The men and women who passed her carried files like weapons, their eyes sharp, their smiles measured. At the far end of the corridor, behind a glass office etched with gold letters, stood Dante. He looked up before she knocked, as if he'd felt her presence before he'd seen her. "Right on time," he said. His voice, steady and low, filled the room before she even stepped inside. "I wasn't sure you meant it," she replied. "The offer." "I don't make offers I don't mean." He gestured toward a chair. "Sit." She obeyed, though her pulse beat fast. The office smelled of leather and rain, the scent of control. Files were arranged in precise stacks on his desk, and beside them a single white carnation, a reminder or a warning. He noticed her glance, left it there on purpose. "Why?" "To remind me what's at stake." Their eyes met. Neither looked away. He slid a folder toward her. "This is your first case. A vendor contract. Looks simple, isn't? I want you to read every line." Sarah opened it and froze. Arcuri Imports. The name glared back at her from the header. "You want me to—" "Yes." Dante leaned back. "I need someone I trust to find the cracks before he does." She looked up sharply. "You trust me?" His gaze didn't waver. "I don't have to trust you. I just know you don't lie." She frowned. "That's not the same." "It's better." A knock at the door broke the moment. A tall man entered, light brown hair, sharp eyes, a badge clipped to his belt. "Mr. Marino," he greeted, then turned to her. "Ms. Collins, I'm Rowan Hale, Assistant District Attorney." Her heart skipped. We've crossed paths," he said smoothly. "I wanted to welcome you personally." Dante's tone cooled. "Since when does the DA's office welcome associates?" Rowan smiled faintly. "When the associate has your ear and your trust." Sarah tried to steady her voice. "We spoke briefly after my graduation. He mentioned a panel on ethics," Rowan finished, eyes glinting. "Seems ironic now." Dante stood. "If you have a warrant, present it. If not, this is private property." "Relax," Rowan said. "Just a courtesy visit." He turned to Sarah. "Be careful what you sign, Ms. Collins. Paper cuts can bleed deeper than bullets." Her stomach tightened. "Is that a threat?" "Advice." He nodded once, then left. Silence followed him out, sharp, echoing. Sarah turned to Dante. "Why does he hate you?" "Because men like him need monsters," he said softly. "And I make an easy one." She wanted to argue, but part of her knew. Some truths didn't need confession. They carried themselves in the way a man looked at the world. Hours passed. She dove into the contract, tracing clauses like veins. Arcuri Imports hid deceit behind polite wording. Shipment delays that never happened, accounts that didn't exist, clauses that turned trust into trapdoors. Her instincts told her what her mind didn't want to. Vince wasn't sending business. He was sending bait. As the office emptied around sunset, Dante stepped out from his corner desk. The city below glimmered through the rain, 1,000 lights trembling on glass. He watched her pack her files. "You see it, don't you?" he asked quietly. "The inconsistencies," she said. "Half the numbers don't match. The addresses don't exist. Because they were never meant to." He paused. "He wants me to sign it, publicly, to show I can be fooled. That I've gone soft." Sarah frowned. "And you want me to expose it?" "I want you to prove I haven't." She closed the folder carefully. "You could have hired anyone." "I didn't want anyone," he said simply. "I wanted you." Her breath caught, too fast, too deep. "Why?" "Because you're your father's daughter," he said, "and because you don't scare easy." She looked at him, really looked, at the lines near his eyes, the quiet exhaustion, the iron beneath the calm. "You should." He almost smiled. "Maybe I do." When she left his office, the building was nearly empty. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed softly as she crossed the lobby, clutching her briefcase close. Rain blurred the city beyond the glass doors, streaking silver over the night. She reached the underground garage, the echo of her heels sharp against concrete. A sound stopped her, faint, out of rhythm. Footsteps, behind. She turned. Nothing. Her fingers tightened around her keys. "You're imagining it," she told herself. Long day. Too much tension. But then, another sound. Closer, a breath. Not hers. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Unknown number. Run. She spun just as a figure stepped from behind a column. Tall, coat dark, face shadowed. The glint of metal in his hand caught the dim light. A gun. Her heart slammed against her ribs. He raised it, silent, steady. A deafening crack split the air. Sarah dove behind a car, glass shattering as the bullet struck the pillar where she'd been standing seconds before. Panic surged, raw, electric. She crawled low, pulse roaring in her ears. Another shot. Sparks erupted as metal screamed. Then, a new sound. Tires screeching. Headlights flared white-hot at the ramp. A black Maserati cut through the shadows like a blade. The car fishtailed, slammed to a halt. The door burst open. Dante. "Get in!" She ran, heart pounding, breath shallow. Another shot rang out, sparking off the hood as she dove inside. Dante slammed the door, threw the gearshift, and the car roared forward, tires burning rubber as they sped up the ramp. Behind them, a man stepped into the glow of the taillights, eyes cold, mouth twisted in something between a smile and a promise. Vince Arcuri, The storm outside swallowed the city as Dante wove through traffic, headlights slicing through rain. His jaw was tight, knuckles white against the wheel. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head, breath ragged. "No, Who was that?" He didn't look at her. "A ghost." "Vince Arcuri?" "Yes." She gripped the seatbelt. "He tried to kill me." "No." Dante's voice lowered. "He tried to warn me." Lightning flashed across the windshield, white against glass. Sarah turned toward him. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. And my father. He'll know you're protected. I left him a message." "Dante." Her voice broke. "What happens now?" He exhaled slowly. "Now. Nothing stays hidden. Not the past. Not the truth. And not this." His eyes flicked toward her. A glance that felt like confession. Then he turned back to the road. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold as they crossed the bridge, rain thrumming like a drumbeat against the roof. For the first time, Sarah realized how close she'd come, and how close they now were. Some debts were written in ink, others in blood, and tonight someone had come to collect. The rain followed them like a secret. It streaked down the windshield, heavy and relentless, blurring the world into shifting ghosts. The city lights faded behind them, swallowed by the storm. Only the hum of the engine and the rhythm of their breathing filled the silence. Sarah sat rigid in the passenger seat, her hands still trembling. The taste of fear lingered on her tongue, sharp, metallic. She replayed the gunshot in her mind, the echo trapped in her chest. It didn't feel real. None of it did. Not the note, not the flower, not the man beside her, driving with eyes fixed on the road like he could outrun fate itself. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. Dante's voice was quiet, steady. "Somewhere he can't reach you." "Who?" she whispered, though she already knew. "Vince." She stared at her hands. "Why me?" He didn't answer immediately. The wipers swept across the glass, cutting through the downpour. "Because he knows what you mean to me," Dante said finally. Her head turned sharply. "What I mean?" "To your father," he corrected. But the pause had already betrayed him. The road narrowed into dark countryside, the skyline fading to forest. After nearly an hour, the car slowed before an iron gate. It opened without a sound. Beyond it, a long driveway wound through tall pines, ending at a secluded villa overlooking the river. Lights glowed faintly inside, warm against the storm. "This is your house?" Sarah asked softly. "One of them." She followed him through the front door. The interior was quiet, minimal, elegant. Dark wood, stone walls, the faint scent of cedar. Everything in perfect order. Everything except the way her pulse refused to calm. He took her coat, hung it near the door. "You should get out of those clothes," he said. "They're soaked." Her breath caught. He seemed to realize the words, the double edge of them, and added quickly, "There's a room down the hall. Closet stocked. Choose what you like." She nodded, avoiding his gaze, and disappeared down the corridor. In the guest room, she peeled away the layers of rain and fear, wrapping herself in a soft gray sweater from the closet. It smelled faintly of him, smoke and cologne and something deeper, something she couldn't name. She caught her reflection in the mirror, damp hair, red eyes, a stranger wearing her face. The woman staring back wasn't the law student who'd smiled under chandeliers 2 nights ago. She was someone else now, someone who knew the weight of danger and the warmth of the man who carried it. When she stepped back into the living room, Dante was by the fireplace, a glass in his hand, sleeves rolled up, tie undone. The shadows of the fire painted lines across his face, softening the hardness she'd come to expect. He looked up. "You all right?" She hesitated. "Should I be? I've seen worse shaken by less." She crossed her arms. "Maybe I'm too tired to fall apart." "Or too strong," he said quietly. Their eyes met. For a moment, the fire's crackle filled the silence between them, that fragile space where danger and desire felt like the same thing. Sarah sat across from him. You said Vince knows what I mean to you. What did you mean by that? Dante exhaled, set his glass down. Your father and I go back more years than you've been alive. We built things together, made mistakes together, some that never washed clean. His gaze darkened. Your mother was part of that world once, not by choice. Sarah's breath hitched. My mother? She wanted out. Ray wanted to save her. I helped. His voice softened. We thought leaving that life behind would bury it. We were wrong. She leaned forward. So this, all of this, it's because of them? It's because of me. Dante's jaw tightened. Vince doesn't care who bleeds as long as I watch. Silence pressed around them. She studied him. The scar just above his wrist, the exhaustion in his shoulders, the way his eyes lingered on her like a man fighting something stronger than himself. Why are you doing this? She asked softly. Because I made a promise. He looked at her then, really looked, no mask, no distance. To your father, to your mother, to you. Her chest tightened. I never asked you to. I know. Then why? Because I can't watch another innocent burn for my sins. The words hit her like a confession. For a heartbeat she saw through the armor, the guilt, the loneliness, the quiet desperation of a man carrying too many ghosts. She rose slowly, crossing the space between them. You don't have to do this alone. He looked up. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not afraid of you. His voice was barely a whisper. You should be. She shook her head. No, you're the only one who makes me feel safe. Something in him broke, or maybe it was something he'd been holding too long. He stood, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, the scent of rain still clinging to his shirt. Sarah? His voice trembled, a crack in the storm. There's a line we can't cross. Then stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like you already did. Their breath mingled, the air charged, trembling between them. Her fingers brushed his sleeve, a touch so light it might have been imagined. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, a sharp buzz cut through the silence. The phone on the mantel vibrated, screen flashing. Dante stepped back, breaking the spell. He grabbed it, jaw tightening as he read the message. What is it? She asked. He didn't answer, just stared at the screen. Finally, he turned to her, voice cold again. Someone inside my company fed Arcuri the contract files. Her heart sank. A traitor. He nodded. Someone close. Someone with access. Her voice shook. What happens now? We find them before they find you again. The fire crackled behind him, throwing shadows across his face. The warmth between them turned to something sharper. Resolve. War. Sarah reached for the carnation still resting in the vase near the window, its petals white against the dark glass. If he's watching us, what does that mean? Dante's eyes lifted to meet hers, gray and endless. It means he's not done, and neither are we. Outside, thunder rumbled, distant but coming closer. Inside, two hearts beat in the same rhythm, divided by duty, bound by something neither could name. And for the first time, Sarah realized, the line they feared crossing had already blurred, not in touch, not in word, but in the silence where truth lived, and love began to grow. The sky over Century City was pale and heavy, the kind of gray that pressed against the glass and turned everything into reflection. Sarah stood beside Dante as the elevator rose, its mirrored walls throwing back their faces, his calm, her unease. He had barely spoken all morning. The message from the night before still haunted them both. Someone inside my company fed Arcuri the contract files. No name, no clue, only betrayal. When the doors slid open to the top floor, a wave of tension met them. Staff whispered in tight clusters. Phones rang unanswered. Eyes darted away the moment Dante's gaze swept across the room. Something was wrong. He felt it in his bones, the shift in air before a storm. Stay close, he murmured, his hand brushing Sarah's lower back. The gesture was instinct, not strategy, but it grounded her all the same. Inside his office, papers lay scattered across the table. A laptop was open, frozen on an email thread. Who accessed the files? Dante demanded. Leo, his security chief, shifted nervously. Someone with level 3 clearance. Could be anyone from accounting to legal. Dante's jaw flexed. Start with legal. Sarah watched him, the way his mind moved like a chess master under fire. No panic, no hesitation, just precision. Yet beneath that, she saw the cost. Every decision he made was another scar on his conscience. As Leo left, Dante poured himself a glass of water he didn't drink. He's bleeding me from the inside, he muttered. Vince wants me guessing, doubting. He knows that's how empires fall. Sarah stepped closer. Then don't let him win. He looked at her. Really looked, as if seeing light where there should have been smoke. You talk like you've never lost anything, he said softly. I have, she whispered. That's why I'm still here. Their eyes held, a fragile connection amid the chaos. Then, suddenly, the world shattered. An explosion ripped through the floor below. The windows rattled. Alarms screamed. A wave of smoke billowed up the stairwell. Down! Dante grabbed Sarah, pulling her behind the desk as debris rained from the ceiling. Another blast shook the building, closer this time. The lights flickered, then died. Through the haze, distant shouts echoed, security scrambling, people crying, the metallic click of weapons where none should be. Vince, Dante hissed. He's here. Sarah's pulse roared in her ears. What do we do? He reached under the desk, pulling out a steel case. From it, a handgun, a phone, a small key. We move. Now. They slipped into the service corridor, the air thick with smoke. Emergency lights flickered red against the walls, painting them in warning. Every sound felt amplified. Footsteps, doors, the creak of metal. Halfway down the hall, they froze. 2 men in black moved ahead, armed, deliberate. Dante pressed Sarah against the wall, shielding her with his body. Stay behind me, he breathed. Her heart hammered against his chest. You can't take them alone. I don't need to. I just need to get you out. He leaned, whispered in her ear. When I move, run. Before she could argue, he stepped out, gun raised, firing once, twice. The corridor exploded in shouts. 1 man fell, the other turned, returning fire. Dante ducked behind a column, dragging Sarah into the stairwell. The clang of metal boots followed them down flight after flight. Smoke filled the air, choking, blinding. Sarah stumbled, coughing. Dante's arm circled her waist, steadying her. Almost there, he urged. They burst into the parking garage, chaos everywhere. Sprinklers hissed overhead, water mixing with smoke. He spotted the black SUV, its headlights still off. In, he ordered. As soon as the doors slammed, he started the engine, tires screaming against the concrete as they tore out of the building. In the mirror, figures emerged from the shadows. Too late, too slow. Sarah clutched the handle, her breathing ragged. You could have died. He glanced at her, eyes wild but focused. So could you. I didn't ask you to. You think I'm doing this because you asked. His voice was rough, raw. I'd burn the city before I let them touch you. The words hit her like gunfire, sharp, honest, final. There was no space left between them for denial. As the city lights blurred past, Sarah saw his hands tremble on the wheel, the first crack in his armor. Without thinking, she reached across and covered one with hers. He didn't pull away. They drove in silence, hearts sinking with the hum of the engine, until the highway melted into the hills. Dante took a sharp turn, climbing toward a private airstrip hidden behind steel gates. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere safe. Real safe. The hangar loomed ahead, empty except for a sleek jet gleaming under the floodlights. He parked beside it, killed the engine, and exhaled. The silence afterward was deafening. Sarah turned to him. How long can we run like this? He looked at her, eyes dark with exhaustion and something deeper. Until I stop them. And then? Then I stop myself, he said quietly, almost to himself. She unbuckled her seatbelt, turned fully toward him. "You keep acting like you're some kind of monster. But I've seen monsters, Dante. They don't protect. They don't bleed." He leaned back, studying her. "You don't know everything I've done." "Then tell me." He hesitated. "Your father and I, we weren't always on the right side. We built an empire on silence, and silence demands payment. Is that why Vince hates you? Because I ended what we started. Because I chose to change." She reached out, fingers brushing his jaw. "And because you chose to protect me." His eyes closed at the touch, a soft surrender he hadn't allowed himself in years. "You shouldn't care for me, Sarah. Not with what's coming. I don't know how not to." That broke something. He cupped her face, thumb tracing the line of her cheek. Their breaths mingled, slow and heavy, the air thick with everything they hadn't said. When his lips found hers, it wasn't fury or desperation. It was release. A promise whispered in the smoke. The world outside blurred, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. His kiss deepened, slow and reverent, tasting of ash and truth. The space between danger and desire vanished, replaced by something raw, alive. When they finally pulled apart, foreheads touching, the silence between them was sacred. No lies, no titles, just two souls stripped bare. Then Dante's phone buzzed. A single message on the cracked screen. "Check your own house. The traitor wears your crest." He froze. Sarah's eyes searched his. "What does it mean?" He turned the phone toward her. The sender, Leo. The name hung between them like a knife. His voice was quiet, lethal. "My security chief, my oldest friend." Sarah's blood ran cold. "He's working with Vince?" Dante's jaw set. "He's been feeding him everything." The weight of it crashed over them. Betrayal layered on betrayal. Sarah reached for his hand, squeezing tight. "Then what now?" He looked at her, resolve hardening behind the tenderness. "Now," he said, "we end this." Outside, the rain began again, faint at first, then steady, washing over the world like absolution. But inside the car, two hearts beat in rhythm to a promise neither could break. They were no longer running. They were preparing for war. The rain had stopped by dawn, leaving the air heavy and still, as if the city itself held its breath. Dante stood before the glass wall of the safe house, the sky painted in muted golds and grays. His reflection stared back, sharp suit, tired eyes, a man carved from consequence. Behind him, Sarah stirred on the couch, wrapped in a blanket he'd placed over her hours earlier. She hadn't meant to fall asleep, but exhaustion had claimed her somewhere between his confession and the silence that followed. Now, as morning light spilled across the floor, reality felt no less fragile than it had the night before. Dante's phone buzzed, a secure line. He answered without looking away from the horizon. "Leo." A pause. Then the voice on the other end, familiar, controlled, but colder than he remembered. "We need to talk." Dante's grip tightened. "Where?" "Pier 19. 30 minutes. Alone." The line went dead. Sarah's voice broke the quiet. "It's him, isn't it?" He turned. Her hair fell in loose waves, her eyes still heavy with sleep, but sharp with concern. "Yes. You're going to meet him. It's not a choice." She rose, clutching the blanket. "Then I'm coming with you." "No." The word came quick, instinctive. "If this goes wrong, then you'll need someone to get you out." Their gazes locked. She wasn't pleading, she was promising. And he knew better than to waste time arguing with a woman who'd already made up her mind. The docks were quiet, too quiet. A low mist rolled over the water, shrouding the edges of the world. Cranes loomed like steel skeletons above rusted containers. The place reeked of salt, oil, and betrayal. Dante stepped out of the SUV first, scanning the shadows. Sarah followed, her pulse hammering in her ears. The air felt colder here, heavier, as if soaked in the weight of unspoken sins. A lone figure waited by the edge of the pier. Leo. He looked older, or maybe it was the guilt. His dark coat hung loose, his hair streaked with gray. The man who once laughed beside Dante through blood and fire now looked like a ghost wearing his skin. "You came," Leo said quietly. "You called," Dante replied. For a long moment they just stood there, two men bound by loyalty, broken by it. Then Dante's voice hardened. "Why?" Leo exhaled. "Because he has her." Dante's jaw clenched. "Who?" "Your witness, the accountant from Chicago, the one who flipped." His eyes darted toward Sarah, guilt flickering. "He's going after everyone who can clear your name." "And you helped him." Leo's silence was answer enough. Sarah stepped forward. "Why betray him? He trusted you." Leo's eyes softened. "Because trust doesn't pay debts, sweetheart. Vince owns my son's life. You don't walk away from that." Dante's voice dropped to a low growl. "There were other ways. Not for me. Not after what we did." The words hung heavy, tangled with ghosts. Sarah felt the shift, something unsaid between them, buried deep. "What you did," she pressed. "What are you talking about?" Neither man spoke. Sarah turned to Dante. "Tell me." He hesitated. "This isn't—" "Tell me." Her voice cracked, not from anger but from the ache of being left outside the truth. Leo's gaze met hers, remorse cutting through the fog. "Your father wasn't the man you think he was." Sarah froze. "What?" Dante's hand lifted, a warning. "Leo." "No more lies," Leo said. "She deserves it." Sarah's heartbeat roared in her ears. "What do you mean?" Leo took a step closer. "Your father, Ray, he worked with us, with Dante, with Vince. Back then, they ran the city. Money, shipments, politics. And your father, he kept the books." Sarah shook her head. "No, he was a lawyer. He was our lawyer, the best, until the night the deal went bad." "What deal?" Dante's voice came rough. "A shipment. Stolen goods. Vince double-crossed us. Ray tried to fix it, but the feds were already closing in." Leo nodded. "We burned the records, all of them, but Vince wanted a scapegoat." Sarah's voice trembled. "My father. He was supposed to take the fall," Dante said quietly. "I didn't let him." Her eyes widened. I took the blame," he finished. "The charges, the headlines, the exile. He had a family. You were 5. I couldn't let you grow up visiting your father through glass." The truth hit like a blow. Everything. The protection, the silence, the guilt. It all made sense now. Tears welled in her eyes. "You ruined your life. For us. For you," he corrected. "For him. Because once, he saved mine." Leo looked away, shame written in the slump of his shoulders. "And I betrayed both of you. You were right, Dante. Vince doesn't care who bleeds, so long as he gets to watch." A rumble of engines cut through the fog. SUVs rolling down the pier, lights flashing in the mist. Dante's hand went to his gun. Too late. Leo's voice broke. "He's not here for me. He's here for her." In an instant, Dante turned, grabbing Sarah's hand. "Go. Now." Gunfire erupted, splitting the silence. Bullets tore through the air, splintering crates and concrete. Dante fired back, dragging Sarah behind a container. Leo dove beside them, returning fire with grim precision. "Back up," Leo shouted. "5 minutes out," Dante answered, eyes scanning for exits. "We don't have 5 minutes." Sarah clung to his arm. "We're trapped." "No," he said, spotting a maintenance stairway leading down to the water. "Not yet." They sprinted, Leo covering their escape, his gun barking in short, desperate bursts. A bullet grazed Dante's arm. He gritted his teeth, kept moving. Sarah's heart pounded with every step. At the edge of the pier, Dante turned. Leo stood in the open, firing until his clip ran dry. Then he met Dante's eyes and nodded once, a silent goodbye. "No!" Sarah cried as Vince's men closed in. Leo reached into his jacket, pulled the pin from a grenade, and whispered, "For my son." The explosion lit the fog like dawn breaking. The shockwave threw them forward into the water below. Sarah surfaced first, gasping, reaching for Dante. He broke through beside her, blood mixing with salt and rain. They clung to each other, waves battering against the pilings. "Dante!" Her voice trembled. "I know." He pulled her close. "He made his choice." Sirens wailed in the distance, flashing red through the mist. Dante guided her toward the shadows beneath the dock, where a small boat bobbed against the tide. As they climbed aboard, Sarah looked back, smoke rising, fire dancing across the pier. It wasn't just a battlefield. It was a graveyard of promises. She turned to Dante. "You saved my father, and Leo saved us." Dante's eyes were hollow, haunted. Blood and oaths. They both end the same. She reached for his hand, squeezing tight. "Not this one." He looked at her, and in her eyes, he saw not pity, but belief. For the first time in years, something in him began to heal. The engine sputtered to life. They drifted into the fog, leaving the flames behind. But as the city disappeared into smoke, Dante knew the war wasn't over. Vince had lost a soldier, not the battle. And now, he would strike where it hurt most. He looked at Sarah, drenched, trembling, defiant, and the weight of his vow settled heavy on his chest. "He'll come for you next," he whispered. "Then we'll be ready," she answered. Their fingers intertwined. Two souls bound by blood, redemption, and the kind of love born only from fire. The wind tore across the empty highway, cold and relentless, carrying with it the scent of smoke and iron. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, fractured by storm clouds. Inside the safe house, the silence was uneasy, like the hush before a verdict. Sarah stood by the window, wrapped in one of Dante's shirts. The sleeves swallowed her hands. The scent of him, smoke, cedar, rain, clung to the fabric like a promise. She traced the condensation on the glass with her fingertip, her reflection ghostly against the pale morning light. Behind her, Dante was on the phone, voice low, words clipped. "Lock every route south. Double surveillance at the docks. I want eyes on every move Vince makes." He hung up, jaw tight. The bruises on his knuckles hadn't faded. The cut on his arm still burned beneath the bandage. But what haunted him wasn't pain. It was the echo of Leo's voice. "He's here for her." He turned. "We're leaving tonight." Sarah's brow furrowed. "Running again?" "Not running. Moving." He crossed the room, his presence filling it. "Vince isn't finished. The docks were just a message." "And what was the message?" "That nothing, and no one, is untouchable." She met his gaze, unflinching. "You really think there's anywhere in this country he can't find us?" He didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. Vince's reach wasn't measured in miles. It lived in whispers, in shadows, in the kind of loyalty that could be bought with fear. Sarah stepped closer, her voice softer. "You've been fighting this war alone for too long. It's not your war." "It is now." He looked at her then, really looked. The courage in her eyes, the trembling in her hands, the heart that refused to surrender. "You shouldn't have to carry this." "I'm not carrying it," she said. "I'm carrying you." Something in him cracked. The wall he'd spent years building. His hand found her cheek, rough thumb tracing soft skin. "You don't know what that means." "I do," she whispered. "It means I'm not leaving." The words lingered between them, fragile, powerful, irrevocable. Dante leaned in, forehead resting against hers. For a heartbeat, the world outside disappeared. There was no Vince, no past, no blood, only this, the quiet truth that love had found them in the ruins. Then, a sharp sound, a vibration on the table. Sarah pulled back as Dante's phone lit up. A text, unknown number, attached image. He opened it, and the world tilted. It was Sarah, bound, gagged, eyes wide with terror. And the message: "You wanted peace, brother. Come earn it. Midnight. Pier 9. Alone." For a second, Dante couldn't breathe. The room spun, the floor vanished. Then his expression hardened, steel over fire. He has her. He reached for his gun, his keys, his coat. Leo's last words echoed like a warning. He's here for her. Dante stormed toward the door. His men moved to follow, but he stopped them cold. "No one comes," he said. "Not this time." "Boss?" He turned, eyes like ice. "He wants me. He gets me." Midnight bled across the horizon like ink, drowning the pier in shadow. The water below lapped against the pilings, black and endless. The city's glow seemed far away. Another world, another life. Dante stepped out of the car, the crunch of gravel beneath his boots, the only sound. He wore no armor, no mask. Just a dark coat, the weight of his past on his shoulders, and the fire of love in his chest. Ahead, Vince waited, flanked by armed men, his smile sharp as broken glass. And beside him, tied to a chair beneath a single hanging bulb, was Sarah. Her eyes met Dante's. Fear, relief, faith. "Right on time," Vince said. His voice was smooth, too smooth. "You never could resist a good tragedy." Dante took a step forward. "Let her go." "Funny," Vince mused. "That's exactly what your father said the night I burned his warehouse." Dante's jaw clenched. "You want me. I'm here. Take your shot." "Oh, no." Vince's smile widened. "Death's too easy. I want something better. I want to watch you break." He nodded, and one of his men stepped forward, pressing a gun to Sarah's temple. Dante's breath hitched. Barely. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Don't." "Here's the bargain," Vince said, pacing slowly. "You sign over your holdings. Every company, every property, every account, you vanish, disappear from your own kingdom. And in exchange," he gestured towards Sarah, "she walks away. And if I don't?" Vince leaned in, smirking. "Then she doesn't walk away at all." The silence that followed was unbearable, the kind that stretched until it screamed. Sarah shook her head violently. "Don't do it!" Her voice was muffled by the gag, but he understood. He looked at her, and in her eyes he saw everything he'd ever fought for. Not power, not redemption, love, pure, defiant, undeserved. And his. Dante turned back to Vince. "You want my empire?" His tone was steady, calm, the voice of a man who'd already made peace with the fire. "It's yours." Vince laughed, triumphant. "Just like that?" "Just like that." He pulled a folder from his coat. Documents already prepared, notarized, signed. Vince's brows lifted in surprise. "You were expecting me." "I was expecting this." Dante's voice was low, dangerous. "Men like us, we only have one way to end things." Vince took the folder, scanning it quickly. "Looks legitimate." He snapped his fingers. "Release her." The gun lifted from Sarah's head. She gasped as one of the guards cut her bonds. But before she could move, Dante spoke again, voice like thunder before a storm. "You forgot to check the last page." Vince frowned, flipping it open, and froze. Inside, a single line of text. "By signing, Vincent Arcuri relinquishes all legal claim to holdings, assets, and titles, acknowledging full responsibility for prior acts of organized crime under Marino Holdings." His head snapped up. "What did you—" But it was too late. Headlights flared from the darkness. Black SUVs screeched onto the pier, engines roaring, doors flying open. Federal agents poured out, guns raised, badges gleaming. "FBI, drop your weapons!" Chaos exploded. Vince's men scattered, gunfire cutting through the night. Dante lunged forward, grabbing Sarah, pulling her behind a stack of crates as bullets ricocheted off steel. She clung to him, trembling. "You planned this?" He nodded once. "The only way to end a devil's bargain is to make him sign his own damnation." Vince shouted orders, firing wildly before agents tackled him to the ground. His furious screams echoed across the dock as handcuffs clicked shut. For the first time in years, Dante felt the weight lift, not gone, but lighter, like a wound finally given air. He turned to Sarah. Her face was streaked with tears, her wrists raw from the ropes, but her eyes were alive. She pressed a trembling hand to his cheek. "You risked everything." He caught her fingers, kissed them softly. "You were everything." The sirens wailed around them, red and blue flashing over the water. But in the middle of that chaos, time slowed. Two souls in the eye of the storm. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered. You can't lose what was never leaving. He pulled her close, his lips finding hers, not out of victory, but out of surrender. The kiss was deep, trembling, real. And for the first time, they weren't running, they weren't hiding, they were free. Yet even as dawn bled across the horizon, painting the water gold, Dante knew one truth lingered. Freedom came at a cost. Vince was gone, but the empire was broken, and somewhere in the ashes, new enemies were already waiting. He held Sarah tighter. Whatever comes next. She finished for him, her voice steady. We face it together. The house stood silent, a monument of glass and stone overlooking the Pacific. Once it had been alive, filled with music, laughter, the hum of late-night strategy calls. Now it felt hollow, stripped bare by time and consequence. Dante stepped across the threshold, his boots echoing on the marble. Dust floated in the air like ghosts. Every corner of the mansion whispered memories, deals made, battles won, sins buried. Sarah followed, her hand slipping into his. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "It used to be." He looked around the space, the sweeping staircase, the paintings still hanging crooked from the night agents raided his home. The empire he'd built through blood and brilliance was gone. The headlines called him the fallen king of Century City. Some saw him as a hero for taking down Vince Arcuri, others as just another criminal who cut a deal. But none of it mattered. Not now. Not with her beside him. Sarah wandered to the window, the sunset painting her in gold. "You don't have to stay here. This is where it started," he said, "where it ends too." She turned. "No, Dante. This isn't the end." He wanted to believe her. But every wall in this house carried a scar, reminders of the cost of his redemption. He turned his empire into evidence, handed over every asset, every shell company, every ounce of control. In return, the FBI gave him one thing: freedom. But freedom didn't feel like forgiveness. The sound of tires on gravel pulled him from his thoughts. A black sedan rolled to a stop outside the gates. From the passenger side, a man in a gray suit stepped out. "Agent Collins." Dante's jaw tightened. "I was expecting you." The agent approached, briefcase in hand, eyes sharp behind rimless glasses. "We appreciate your cooperation, Mr. Marino. You've helped dismantle one of the largest criminal syndicates in California." "Then we're done here." "Not quite." Collins opened the case, sliding a file across the counter. Inside, surveillance photos, financial ledgers, and one missing page. Sarah frowned. "What's this?" "A loose end," the agent said. "Before Vince's arrest, someone inside our unit wiped key evidence. Wire transfers, coded messages, gone." Dante's brow furrowed. "You're saying he had help from inside the bureau?" Collins didn't answer. "We'll be in touch." When the car disappeared down the hill, the silence returned, heavier now. Sarah closed the file. "You think Vince still has someone on the inside?" "I think snakes shed skins." Dante muttered. "Doesn't mean they're gone." She reached for his hand. "Then we find them." He stared at her fingers wrapped around his, small, determined, unafraid. "You should hate me for dragging you into this." "I don't." "Why?" "Because you saved my father. Because you saved me. Because everything they say about you, the monster, the criminal, I've never seen it. I've only seen the man who kept his word." He looked away, jaw tight. "Your father doesn't see it that way." As if summoned, the front door opened. Heavy footsteps echoed across the foyer. Ray Hale stood framed by the dying light, older now, wearier, but still carrying the gravity of a man used to control. Sarah froze. "Dad." Ray's eyes flicked between them, from his daughter's trembling hand in Dante's to the man himself, the ghost of his past standing in flesh and blood. "Ray," Dante said quietly. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air felt charged, heavy with years of silence. Then Ray stepped forward. "You should have told me. I promised I wouldn't. I had a right to know what you sacrificed." His voice cracked, the anger faltering. "All those years, I thought you disappeared because of guilt. I didn't know it was mercy." Dante exhaled. Mercy doesn't erase blood. Ray's eyes softened. No, but it means something. He turned to Sarah. You love him. Her voice shook, but her gaze didn't waver. I do. And you understand what comes with that? Yes. Ray studied Dante again, searching for the man he once called brother. Then take care of her. Don't let the fire take her like it took us. Dante nodded. You have my word. Something shifted then. The weight of decades lifted just enough to breathe. Ray's shoulders eased. He stepped forward, resting a hand on Dante's arm. You saved my life once. Maybe this is me returning the favor. He left quietly, the echo of his forgiveness lingering like smoke. Sarah stood in the doorway long after the car disappeared. He forgave you. Maybe, Dante said, but I'm not sure I can. She turned, eyes glistening. Then let me. He looked at her, really looked, and saw what Leo had meant before the end. She's the only thing that can pull you back from the edge. He reached for her, fingertips tracing the curve of her jaw. You deserve a clean slate. So do you. The sun dipped below the horizon, shadows spilling across the floor. For the first time, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt alive. Sarah pressed her forehead to his chest. We can rebuild. Not the empire. Us. He rested his chin on her hair, breathing her in. You want to live here? With a man the world thinks is a sinner? I don't care what the world thinks, she whispered. I know the truth. He kissed the top of her head, eyes closing. Then we start over. No more lies. No more running, she added. They stood there as night settled around them, two souls scarred but standing, bound by something stronger than guilt. Then, a sound, a faint click. Sarah looked up. What was that? Dante turned toward the entryway. The door was ajar, swaying gently. On the floor, an envelope, no markings, no stamp, just his name, written in sharp ink. He picked it up, tore the seal. Inside, a single photograph. Vince, in a hospital bed, eyes open. And beneath it, a handwritten note. You can't kill what you built. Dante's pulse slowed, cold dread seeping in. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. He's alive. He stared at the photo, the fire rekindling behind his eyes. Then the war isn't over. Sarah stepped beside him, her hand finding his. Then neither are we. Outside, thunder rolled again over the Pacific, distant but coming closer. Inside, the man who had given up everything for redemption stood beside the woman who refused to let him burn. And together, they faced the storm. The photograph lay between them on the table, a ghost in ink and shadow. Vince Arcuri, eyes open, alive. Outside, the surf crashed against the cliffs below the house, echoing like a heartbeat. The ocean had always been Dante's sanctuary, a place to wash the blood from his hands. But now, the tide felt heavier. It whispered a truth he didn't want to face. The war he thought he ended was only just beginning. He should have died, Dante said, voice low. Sarah stood beside him, fingers trembling over the edges of the photo. You saw him fall. You saw the fire. I saw what I wanted to see. His jaw tightened. Vince doesn't die easy, not when hate's keeping him alive. Sarah met his gaze. Then we finish it. Together. Dante shook his head. No. This time I don't drag you into the fire. She stepped closer, eyes fierce. You're not dragging me. I'm walking in. The air between them crackled, not from anger, but fear disguised as love. He wanted to lock her away, far from the chaos he'd spent a lifetime surviving. But he'd learned the hard way. Cages built from love still felt like prisons. Before he could answer, headlights swept across the window. The sound of tires on gravel followed. Dante's hand moved to the gun on the table. Stay here. He stepped out onto the porch as two black SUVs came to a stop. 4 agents emerged, suits crisp, eyes sharp, and behind them, Agent Collins. Marino. His tone carried that mix of respect and suspicion only lawmen could perfect. "We need a word." Dante motioned them inside. Sarah stood in the doorway, watching every movement. Collins laid a file on the table. "Vince Arcuri escaped custody 3 nights ago." Sarah's eyes widened. "How?" "That's what we're here to ask." Collins flipped open the folder. Photos spilled out. A prison infirmary in flames, bodies covered in sheets, a single-cell door blown open. Dante frowned. "Inside job." Collins nodded. "We traced the access codes to one of our own. Agent Silas Ward. He's been missing since the breakout." Sarah whispered, "So he's helping Vince." "More than helping," Collins said. "Ward wiped case files, redirected surveillance, erased logs of your meeting at Pier 9. As far as official records show, Vince Arcuri was never captured." Silence filled the room, thick as smoke. Dante stared at the evidence. Every instinct in him, the same instincts that built an empire, screamed one truth. This wasn't just revenge. It was war. Collins closed the file. "We'll put you under federal protection until Ward is found." "No." The agent blinked. "No? I'm done hiding." Dante's voice was firm, final. "You want Ward? You'll find Vince, and I'll bring you both." "That's not how this works." "It is now." Collins sighed. "You step outside the perimeter. You're on your own." Dante smirked. "Story of my life." The agents left. The sound of the SUV engines faded down the road, leaving only the ocean and the weight of what came next. Sarah crossed her arms. "You're going after him." He didn't deny it. "Before he gets to you. I'm not your weakness." "No," he said softly, stepping closer. "You're my reason." Her breath caught. He took her hands, calloused fingers closing gently around hers. "If anything happens to me, don't. You need to hear this. If he comes, you run. You don't wait. You don't look back." Tears welled in her eyes. "And what if I can't?" He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Then I'll find you, like I always do." Their lips met. A slow, desperate kiss, the kind that tasted of fear and forever. When they parted, the air felt charged, the world holding its breath. Dante turned toward the door, pulling on his coat. "Dante," she said, voice trembling. "Please, don't go alone." He paused. "I was born alone, but I'm not dying that way." The warehouse district slept under a blanket of fog. Streetlights flickered. The air smelled of rust and gasoline. Dante moved through the shadows with the ease of a man who'd built his life in them. He'd followed a trail of whispers, offshore accounts, coded messages, Ward's name buried in shell transfers. All led here. An abandoned shipping terminal near Long Beach. Inside, the echo of footsteps. Voices. Laughter that didn't belong. He rounded a corner and froze. Sarah, tied to a chair, blindfolded, surrounded by men in black. And from the darkness, a slow clap. "Well, well," Vince drawled, stepping into the light. The scars across his face caught the glow, twisting his smile into something monstrous. "You never learn, do you, brother?" Dante's heart slammed against his ribs. "Let her go. You really think I brought her here for ransom?" Vince paced in a slow circle. "No, this is about truth. About showing you what mercy costs." He yanked the blindfold from Sarah's eyes. She gasped, blinking against the light. And when her gaze found Dante, the fear vanished. Only fire remained. "Don't you touch her," Dante warned. Vince smirked. "You think love saves you? Love made you weak. You had the city, the crown, the fear of every man who dared breathe your name. Then you gave it up. For her." He stepped closer, sneering. "You used to be a king, Dante. Now you're just a man. Maybe that's what scares you." Vince's eyes hardened. "What scares me is forgetting who we were." He pulled a gun, pressing it to Sarah's shoulder. "So let's remind each other." Dante raised his weapon, but before he could aim, a second figure emerged from the shadows. Agent Ward. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. "Ward," Dante growled. You sold your badge for blood. Ward smirked. Sold it for survival. You should try it sometime. The click of safeties filled the air, a standoff painted in gunmetal and firelight. Sarah's voice broke through, steady, despite the fear. You'll never win. You think pain makes you strong, but it just makes you empty. Vince glanced at her, almost curious. You sound like him. I love him, she said. That's what you'll never understand. The words hit something deep, a flicker of the man Vince once was, before greed turned to vengeance. His jaw twitched. Love doesn't build empires. No, Dante said, but it saves souls. He fired. Chaos exploded. Gunfire ripped through the warehouse. Sparks rained from shattered bulbs. Ward dropped first, a single shot to the chest. Vince lunged, dragging Sarah up as a shield. Let her go, Vince laughed, pressing the barrel to her throat. You think you can kill me without killing yourself? Sarah's eyes locked on Dante's. No words, just trust. Then she moved, fast. A twist of her wrist, a shard of glass from the floor, slashed across Vince's arm. He roared, stumbling back. Dante seized the moment, one clean shot. Vince fell, hard. This time there was no doubt, no heartbeat, just silence. Sarah dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Dante rushed to her, pulling her into his arms. You okay? She nodded, tears mixing with soot. I wasn't waiting again. He held her tighter, burying his face in her hair. You saved us both. Sirens wailed in the distance, real ones this time. Collins would come, find the bodies, close the file. But Dante didn't care about files, or names, or crowns. He cared about the woman in his arms, the light in the ruin. As they stepped out into the night, the first hint of dawn broke over the horizon. Smoke curled behind them, rising like ghosts into the sky. Sarah looked back once. Ashes don't lie, she whispered. No, Dante said, wrapping his arm around her. They remember. And together, they walked toward the light. The morning broke soft and gold over the Pacific, washing the coastline in light. The tide rolled gentle now, no longer roaring, no longer angry. For the first time in years, Dante Marino woke to quiet. He stood barefoot on the balcony, coffee in hand, the ocean breeze tugging at the edge of his white shirt. The scars across his forearm had begun to fade, but they'd never truly disappear. Reminders of the battles fought, the blood spilled, the life survived. Behind him, Sarah stirred. Her laughter drifted through the open doors, light and warm, wrapping around him like sunlight. She was sketching in the living room again. Charcoal on paper, life on canvas. Each line she drew felt like another stone pulled from his chest. You're awake early, she called. Couldn't sleep, he said, turning toward her. The world's too quiet. She smiled, rising from the couch. Maybe it's not quiet. Maybe it's finally at peace. He watched her cross the room, barefoot, hair loose, a light cotton dress swaying with each step. She was no longer the frightened daughter of a broken past. She was the woman who faced fire and refused to burn. When she reached him, he set the cup down and pulled her close. I used to think peace was something you had to buy, he said softly. Now I know it's something you have to earn. Sarah traced the edge of his jaw, eyes shining. You earned it, Dante. Every scar, every fight, they brought you here. He kissed her forehead. Here's better than I deserve. Then it's a good thing I decide what you deserve, she teased. He laughed, a sound rare but easy now. For a moment they stood there, watching the waves crash and retreat. The house no longer felt like a tomb. It was alive again, their home. But even peace had its price. On the kitchen counter, a letter waited, stamped with the seal of the Department of Justice. Tomorrow, Dante would testify one last time. His confession would become part of the record, his name written into history not as a monster, but as a man who helped tear down the empire he built. He wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Sarah noticed his gaze shift to the letter. It's just words on paper, she said gently. You've already told the truth. Truth doesn't erase blood. No, she said, squeezing his hand. But it grows flowers in the soil. He looked down at her. the way her eyes held him steady, the way her presence made the air lighter. "You make everything sound simple." "Because it is," she whispered. "You loved. You fought. You changed." A knock at the door broke the stillness. Dante opened it to find Ray Hale, standing with a cautious smile. "Morning," Ray greeted, stepping inside. He looked different now, less guarded, more human. The weight between them had been lifted since that night. Sarah wrapped her arms around her father. "You came." "Wouldn't miss it," he said, handing her a small box. "Your mother's locket. Thought you might want it." She opened it. Inside, a faded photo of her as a child, between her parents. All smiles and sunlight. Tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you." Ray turned to Dante. "You did what I couldn't." "You ended it." Dante nodded. "We both made mistakes." Ray extended his hand. "Then maybe we both get to start over." They shook, two men bound by regret and grace. Sarah watched them, heart swelling. For the first time in years, the three of them stood under the same roof. Not enemies, not fugitives, just family. Ray cleared his throat. "So when were you going to tell me about this?" He gestured to the table, where Sarah's sketchbook lay open. A rough drawing of her in a simple white dress. Dante beside her under an arch of flowers. Sarah blushed. "It was supposed to be a surprise." Dante smirked. "Guess the secret's out." Ray chuckled. "If you're waiting for my blessing, you already have it." Sarah blinked, emotion catching in her throat. "Really?" Ray's gaze softened. "You're not the little girl I used to protect. You're the woman who saved him." He turned to Dante. "And maybe you saved her too." Dante's eyes met Sarah's. "We saved each other." That evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, they stood barefoot on the sand. The ocean stretched endless, the sky painted in pink and gold. There were no guests, no cameras, no priests, just two hearts and the sound of the sea. Sarah wore a dress she'd sewn herself, light, simple, the color of dawn. Dante wore a linen shirt, sleeves rolled, a single white rose tucked into his pocket. Ray stood a few feet away, silent witness, pride glimmering in his eyes. Sarah took Dante's hands. "We've walked through fire," she whispered. "We've lost, we've bled, we've broken. But somehow, we found love in the ashes." He smiled, small, honest. "You're my compass, Sarah. My reason, my home." She blinked away tears. "So promise me, no more ghosts, no more running, just us. Here, now." "I promise," he said, voice steady. "No more shadows, no more war." She reached up, touching the scar near his jaw. "Do you know what I see when I look at you?" "What?" "The man who turned his past into protection, who made peace his empire." He swallowed hard. "And I see the girl who taught me how to breathe again." They leaned in, a kiss not of desperation, but of certainty. Soft, sure, infinite. The tide washed around their feet, cool and gentle, as if blessing the vow. Ray clapped once, smiling. "About time." Sarah laughed, resting her head on Dante's chest. "Guess that's official enough." He wrapped his arms around her. More than enough. The sky dimmed into twilight, stars flickering to life above them. The ocean whispered promises only they could hear. For the first time, Dante didn't feel the weight of fire, only warmth. Sarah tilted her head up, eyes shining. "You ever think about tomorrow?" "Every day." "And?" He smiled. "Tomorrow's ours." She kissed him again. A seal, a vow, a forever. As the waves curled at their feet, the man who'd once been a king knelt in gratitude, not power. The girl who'd once lived in fear stood beside him, unbroken. Together, they faced the horizon, not as fugitives, not as ghosts, but as lovers reborn. And somewhere beyond the surf, the past finally sank beneath the tide. A year later, the world had changed, or maybe it was just them. The old headlines had faded, replaced by newer scandals, fresher faces. The name Dante Marino no longer carried the weight of fear. To some, he remained a shadow. To others, a story of redemption whispered over morning coffee. But to Sarah, he was simply home. The bell above the door chimed softly as a breeze swept through Hale and Hearth Cafe, tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore in downtown Santa Monica. The scent of roasted beans and sea salt mingled in the air. Walls painted in warm cream and soft gray were adorned with Sarah's sketches, each telling a story of light breaking through shadow. Behind the counter, Sarah laughed with a young barista, showing her how to swirl foam into a heart. The girl listened intently, wide-eyed, the way people often were around Sarah, drawn not just by beauty, but by the calm strength beneath it. "Not too fast," Sarah said gently. "Let it breathe." "Like love?" the girl teased. Sarah smiled. "Exactly." The door opened again. Dante stepped inside, sleeves rolled, hair tousled from the wind. He carried a small box under one arm, supplies from the art gallery that now featured Sarah's work. The city saw her as the girl who turned ashes into art. He saw her as the reason he'd survived the fire. "You're late," she said, grinning. "Blame the traffic," he replied, leaning across the counter to kiss her. The barista blushed and turned away, pretending not to watch. Sarah raised a brow. "You were on foot." "Exactly." He set the box down. "You know, there was a time I thought I'd never walk a city street without looking over my shoulder." She reached for his hand. "Now you just look for me." He squeezed gently. "Always." The bell chimed again. Ray Hale entered carrying a small bouquet of daisies. "For my favorite daughter." Sarah laughed. "I'm your only daughter." "Still counts." He placed the flowers in a vase near the register. "You've got a full house today." It was true. Locals filled the tables, artists, students, families. The place buzzed with quiet joy. A man read a newspaper by the window. A mother shared a pastry with her child. A guitarist strummed softly in the corner. This was the empire Dante had built now, not of steel or money, but of peace. Ray leaned on the counter. "You ever think you'd end up here, kid?" Dante glanced around, a slow smile forming. "Not in a million years." Ray chuckled. "Guess miracles happen." They shared a look, understanding, mutual respect, the kind born not from blood, but forgiveness. A voice called from the doorway. "You two lovebirds got room for one more?" Leo's son, Michael, stood there, taller now, wearing his father's old leather jacket. Dante crossed the room, clasped his shoulder. "You staying out of trouble?" Michael grinned. "Trying." "Good. Trouble's overrated." They sat together, stories flowing with laughter and warmth. The ghosts of the past were still there, but quieter now, like echoes fading with the tide. Later, when the crowd thinned and the sun began to set, Sarah closed the register and joined Dante outside. The sky burned with color, oranges and pinks melting into twilight. She slipped her hand into his. "You ever miss it?" He looked at her. The chaos. The power. He shook his head. "Power doesn't keep you warm at night. This does." He nodded toward the cafe, the laughter drifting through the door. "You do." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder. "You know, a year ago we were standing in ashes." He smiled. "Now look at us." The wind carried the scent of coffee and salt, the sound of waves crashing against the pier. Somewhere down the street, a busker played a love song. Sarah lifted her gaze to the horizon. "What do you think tomorrow will bring?" He turned to her, eyes soft. "Sure. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." She smiled. Together. Their fingers intertwined, steady and strong. Around them, the city glowed, alive, forgiving. As the lights flickered on and the last trace of sunset faded, Dante pulled her close. No more secrets, no more shadows, just two hearts, finally free. And as the evening settled over Santa Monica, the man who once ruled an empire of fear walked hand in hand with the woman who taught him love, into a tomorrow they built with their own hands. "Tomorrow's ours," she whispered. He smiled. "Always." If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this one.